Welcome to the 19th episode of Ship of the Week. Today we cover a steamer built as British Imperial territorial extent approached its all-time peak, RMS Dunottar Castle. Named for the famous North Scotland 15th century fortress, and although the modern spelling of the castle's name includes two N's, the name of the ship, as you may have noticed, appears to have dropped the somewhat redundant letter. Built by the Fairfield Shipbuilding Company in 1890 for Donald Curie's Castle Packet Company for service between Southampton and Cape Colony, Dunottar Castle and her owners were caught up in the reorganization of government in South Africa. At the time, Castle Line and Union Line both provided express steamship service to the colony, and its first Prime Minister, John Molteno, hoped to instill a rivalry between the two entities that served as the lifeline of the colony itself to promote their expansion, and both companies received the colony's mail contracts ensuring their ships carried the coveted Royal Mail Ship, or RMS, prefix ahead of their names. Eventually, this rivalry ended with their consolidation into the Union Castle Line in 1900, but that is getting ahead of myself. Dunottar Castle was 430 feet in length, registered a little over 5,600 tons, and could make about 17 knots in good conditions, ensuring her speed was more than sufficient for her late 19th century colonial shuttle role. Her arrivals in Cape Town averaged a little under 43 days from her departure from England, so her voyages were quite popular. She's seen here, tied up at Cape Town near a fleetmate, Arundel Castle. Her popularity was likely boosted by her comfort. Her interiors featuring spaces that wouldn't seem out of place aboard a mid-sized liner of the day on the more prestigious Atlantic route. Dunottar Castle was not immune to mild mishap, and in 1894 she briefly went aground near the Eddystone Light off Cornwall, but was refloated shortly afterward, none the worse for wear. A modernization shortly followed, giving her an updated captain's bridge and enclosed wheelhouse, and almost certainly these were appreciated by her officers. With British authority cementing itself in South Africa, the Second Boer War erupted in October of 1899, and the Crown requisitioned Dunottar Castle for use as a troop ship. Sailing back and forth between England and Cape Town laden with soldiers, the liner also brought a few notable figures to the conflict zone, including a young war reporter for the London daily newspaper The Morning Post, seen here in the uniform of the Queen's Hussars, by the name of Winston. That Winston. Indeed, the commander of British forces for the Boer campaign, Lord Frederick Roberts, is seen here disembarking Dunottar Castle upon his arrival at Cape Town to assume his post. Perhaps evidence of how hard she was driven during the Boer War period, Dunottar Castle twice had to be towed into Dakar, Senegal, first in December of 1900 when her propeller shaft failed, and those aboard completed the trip aboard SS Galatian, seen here in her World War I hospital livery, which had to steam to Dakar to get them. Not even a year later, she broke down entirely and was taken under tow by the White Star liner Runic. After the end of hostilities, Dunottar Castle was chartered several times, including by the Panama Railroad Company as the canal construction continued, for service to Colón, Panama. She also spent some time on European cruises. The ship passed from Union Castle to the Royal Mail Line in 1913, which renamed her Caribbean. She was not in service for her new owners for very long, though, before Europe fell into the clutches of the First World War. Seized by the Royal Navy and commissioned as HMS Caribbean, the Navy quickly found her unsatisfactory in the usual converted merchantman roles as a troopship or light cruiser, so they prepared for her to serve as an accommodation ship instead. She departed on September 24, 1915, intending to arrive at Scapa Flow, but as she rounded the north of Britain, the weather turned, and the liner found herself in quite the storm. It is unclear precisely what went wrong with the ship, although it is possible some of her drainage scuppers were left open to the sea. Regardless, Just off Cape Wrath, Scotland, she began sending distress calls. The cruiser HMS Birkenhead responded through the storm, and while Birkenhead was never able to get Caribbean under tow, most of the stricken ship's crew were successfully taken off before she slipped beneath the waves. Her wreck, identified in 2004, lies in the cold waters at the edge of the North Sea, where she fell more than a century ago.